Hey guys, welcome back, and this is the part two of the OTP system we are creating. So, before we get started, if you have yet not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do well to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, before we head over, on our previous video, we saw how we could modify or create this login page, and also we saw how we could create an OTP page, and we saw how we could create the welcome page. So first thing first, we're just going to tackle the login page, which of course we will be having um, a simple login page which will easily help us to do some basic navigations. So before we get started, we probably have to give each of these um, tools or each of these fields a separate name, right? So we're going to call this txt email. So we're just going to call this txt email or txt. Yeah, let's go by txt email. And then we go by this txt password. So txt password, right? And then this is probably going to be btn login, right? So we just say btn login, and then after this we just have this, and then we are good to go. Yes, everything is going to be go. So right after that, let's go back to let's just double click on the login, so that we should probably be able to get inside our login here. But there are some couple of things we probably have to understand, so that it will really help us to get this going. First of all, we have to create our demo valid email and valid password. So we're just going to say private const string. This is going to be a string. We call this valid email, and we will assign it to an empty string for now. But inside here, let's just use an actual email, right? So I'm just going to use this email, right? And after this is probably going to be the actual email I'm going to use. And we just go in for valid password, and the valid password, we can just say password 123, right? Just like that. Now after we have this, we can then go ahead and then literally try and then start working on the validation. So we're just going to say if txt email dot text equals valid email, and we use the and sign, then we say txt password dot text equals valid password, then it means we have provided the valid information, right? So then what we probably going to do is we will create a new OTP page. So we're just going to say OTP form, then we assign it to a new OTP form like this, and we assign it to a new OTP form just like this. Now we would first hide this main one, so we're just going to say this.hide, right? And then we're just going to say OTP form. So the OTP form we created should show dialog. Or we're just going to show, yeah, now we'll just show dialog like that, right? And then after that, we'll just say this.close. Perfect. Now, if that shouldn't be the case, then it means that there is a problem, right? So in that case, we just add else block here, and then we're just gonna show a message box. So we're just gonna say message box.show, and we're just gonna show the message to be invalid email or password like that, right? And then the next thing we're probably gonna do is we will just add an error thing, maybe something like this. That should be good. That's fine, right? So since this is the validation, and it's probably going to make sure it takes care of the login session, right? So if we click on the start button, and it loads up the login form for us, and we try to log in. There you go, you see. So we can just say example at gmail.com, whatever we have, like whatever. It's not gonna work, you see. But when we type in the correct one, when we type in the correct one, which is this one, I'm just gonna copy that. I'm just gonna come here, and then I'll just paste it here. Then I just say password 123. Click on the login. There you go. So we have the OTP, and then the OTP should be able to give us the valid information exactly, and we are good to go. So let's do the OTP section so that we can probably confirm the code. Now from the OTP verification, but let's do this first. So from this form, we're just gonna add let's just go to the property section and make sure you have the form selected, and then we have the Windows position start default location. Let's just say center screen, and then let's do the same thing for the OTP. So for the OTP, we just choose center screen. That is good. Perfect. And then the main form also needs to be center screen. Perfect. Great. So let's go to our OTP section. Now we go into the OTP code, and now this is where we're gonna do the OTP stuff, right? So first thing first, we probably have to define the username. So we're just gonna say private string. Let's call this user email. That will be needed. Private string generate OTP. Yeah, because we will be generating an OTP. Private int count down. So we're probably gonna add a countdown counting from 30 seconds, and that will only allow us to send a new OTP. So now let's create a public, because we will be using it. Let's create a public OTP form as a string. We will just pass a string email in there, right? And then that is where we add where we would probably add the initials, right? But you know what, we can even use this as that. So let's just copy this, delete this, because we already have it here. Just paste this in here. Now after this, we would say the user email is going to be equal to the email. Then we say generate, we will create it, generate and send OTP. Exactly. So we're probably going to generate, and then we send the OTP. After that, we will start the countdown. Right? Perfect. Now let's create these functions, which will probably help us. First of all, we need to create the OTP. So private void generate private void generate OTP, and let's see what is going to happen. So we are creating a new random. Let's call this, okay, let's hard code it so that you could probably see everything from scratch. So what we're going to do is we just say random, then we call this RND, we assign it to new random, just like this, right? So just say generate OTP with the running nearest number, so to the next, which is we are using 10,000, 100,000 to 999, just like this, and we will convert everything to a string, right? So now after this, we would probably we will use the try catch block, and let's do the catch here. So catch, and then with the catch, we're just gonna pass in what we will catch, right? So we need to pass in an exception here. So we will just pass in an exception here, And this exception, I'm just going to call this EX so that I can probably use it later on. So from here, I'm just going to say message box dot show an error, which is the EX error message. Now let's see how we're going to send the OTP, right? So we're just going to say send OTP, which we will be creating in no time, email. Now here we need to pass in the user email and then the generated OTP, right? Good. This is good, right? So now, since we have this, we have the generated OTP here. So let's call this generated OTP. Then you come down here, you're just gonna add the generated OTP here. And to the next nearest number is going to be the generated OTP. So now, since we have this right now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to show a message box which is going to tell us that the OTP has been sent successfully and we'll be good to go. So it's just a message box which I am of course showing right now, just as you can see right here. Now after that, we would probably have to create this function so that we can send the OTP. So let's go down here. Let's just go down here, and what we will do is we will create the send OTP. So we're just going to say private void send OTP mail, but in here we're just going to create a strange recipient email, and then we're just going to create a strange which is the OTP, right? So inside here we have a private void. Perfect. So inside this private void, oh, I think I have to add this. That is right. And then I delete this. That is right. So inside here, this is to send the OTP, right? So we will use SMTP client, and this should import SMTP client at the top there. So we call this client, and we will assign this client to a new SMTP client. So we are using Gmail in this case. So we have smtp.gmail and then a port we are going to be using, right? Okay, so after that we just call in the client, we enable SSL, then we just call in the client, we assign the credentials to a new system.net network credential. So basically this is going to be our email, and then we add our password. We're going to do that later on. Now after that we have to create a new mail which we want to send, and then the message we want to send. So we're just going to say message.from because we need from, but before that let's create this message, and then we will use this message from here. So we're just going to say message, and then we would just assign this from to the mail address. Now who is the recipient of the mail, right? And then we're just going to say message to the recipient, and message subject is going to be OTP verification, and then the last one is message body is going to be your OTP code is. So in here we're just going to use interpolation instead, right? So inside here we will just add interpolation like this, then we just say OTP, but to make the interpolation work we have to add the $sign in front of this. Perfect. Now after this configuration we have to send the message, right? So just say client.send message, right? So the next step we're going to do is probably to create a function which will handle the start time, right? So just going to say private void start countdown, and within this countdown we should disable a button which is for resend, right? Should disable a button for the resend. So one more thing we probably have to do is from the OTP code we need a resend button, right? So what we probably going to do is we would go to the tools, and then we search for a label, just a normal label, right? I mean a normal label. We're just going to drag and drop the label from the Guna, just place it down here, and we will just choose like a white color for the full color, and the text is gonna say resend OTP code, right? So now when this guy is being clicked, it's gonna resend the OTP code, right? So let's make it, and then we keep this down here, and let's style this a little bit. So bring it up a little bit, and then we will just bring this down a little bit, and we would have one more of this, and this is going to be a countdown. That is probably going to be the countdown. So you're going to set it to like 15. That is good. And the text is going to be just going to say 0000, right? Like that. And let's just expand this a little bit. Let's set the auto size to false, and then we will just increase this a little bit, and we will just align it in the center of it, right? So let's see the alignment of this. So we should have it here, which is text align. So where is it? Let's make sure we have this selected. Yeah, text align. Let's set it to the center. Perfect. Then we just add it here, right? Just like that. Just make sure you you style this a little bit till how you want it to be. That's good. And let's just copy one of these and paste it right down here. Then we just say new OTP code will be ready as soon as the count time is up, like this. And within this, while it is setting up, we're just going to set a full color to gray, making it, maybe a lighter gray, a little bit of lighter gray, making the OTP design looks more attractive and nice and powerful. So this is going to be called BTN resend, right? So let's give it a name. Let's call this BTN resend, right? So now let's go into the codes. Now here, the first thing we're probably going to do is we set the enable of the BTN to false. So BTN resend dot enabled equals to false, because we don't want the user to click on it whilst the timer is counting. So we now call the count time, then we set it to 30. Then the timer one, we need a timer, so we will create a timer. We will add it timer one dot interval. We set it to 1000, sorry. We will set it to 1000, and after that we're just going to say timer one dot tick. We're just going to use that tick, and we would increase the tick. We will increase the tick by the timer one tick, just like this, right? So to solve this problem, let's go back to the OTP. We go here, we add a timer, and just drag and drop it somewhere here, and this is the timer. So when we go back, this issue needs to be resolved right away, because it's called a timer and we are using timer one tick. And then we will create the tick so that it could probably be used, right? So now let's say timer one dot start, and let's come down here, right? So now down here, that is where we are gonna create the timer, but let's make it this way. Just double click on this timer, and we should have the timer in here, right? So inside the timer, if our countdown is greater than 0, it means something is really happening. So then we will set the countdown. So let's call this countdown LBL countdown. Let's assign this LBL countdown to this countdown, right? So we change the text to LBL countdown. So this LBL countdown dot text is now going to be assigned to an interpolated $sign, an interpolated, and then we say resend OTP in, then we set a countdown time, just like that, right? And after that, we will just say count down minus minus, right? Else, we're just gonna say the btn. Before that, we would first stop the timer. We will first stop the timer before we set the resend button to enable. Then we will set the lbl countdown the text to you can now resend OTP, right? Or just resend OTP. Good. Now, this will probably help us to send a new OTP, right? So we need one more. Perfect. Now we need to create this timer tick, but before that, let's work on the resend button, right? So now on the resend button, we will just say generate and send OTP again, just like that. Then we start the countdown, just like that. Now let's go back here, and then the confirm, that is where we're gonna write the verification code. So if txt OTP, so that is where we need to handle the OTP verification, right? We need to handle the OTP verification. So the next thing we're probably going to do is we're going to compare the text we have. So let's go to the OTP. Let's rename these. So this is going to be, let's call this txt OTP1, OTP1, like that. And this is probably going to be txt OTP2. And then we have the txt OTP3. So txt OTP3. And this is going to be txt OTP4, right? And this is going to be txt OTP5. And last but not the least is going to be txt OTP6, right? This is very, 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 very good. Now, the next thing we're probably going to do is to work on the time tick. We will work on the time tick, then we come back to this. So let's come to the time tick, the timer tick. I think I have already done that. So this guy is gonna be copied, and then we're just gonna use this here. So that is the timer tick is gonna fix it, just like that. Now, one thing we have to do is just to get to know the OTP verification generation code, right? So get entered OTP, we have to get a function which will get the entered OTP. So let's create a private void. Oh no, this is going to be a string. Then let's say get entered OTP, because we need to use a function to determine which OTP we have entered, right? So let's see this. Right, so inside the string, what we will do is we will just return, because it is a function, we will just return something. This is going to be txt OTP1 dot text plus, it's going to be like this, just like this, nothing else. So it's going to be increasing itself just right like that. Now inside the verification button, what we're going to do is we're just going to create a string. We're just going to create a string, and this string we're just going to call it entered OTP. Then we get it from the OTP entered code. Now the next thing we're probably going to do is to compare if the OTP is from the generated OTP. So if the entered OTP is being compared to the generated OTP, and I mean they are the same, then that means they have something in common, right? So in that case, we would just pass something here, and then we're just going to show a message box, and then we say OTP verification successful, and after that we will navigate to the main form. So let's create a main form to the main form, and we will say this dot hide, then we say main form dot show dialog, and then we just say this dot close. Perfect. Else, if that shouldn't be the case, then we probably have to find a way and then show a message box. So we're just going to say message box dot show, and here we'll just say we'll just pass in an invalid message. So it's just gonna be like showing an invalid message for the invalid OTP, then we'll just be good to go. Right, so now let's see how this is probably gonna be. So this is the button, click, we're good to go. Okay, so this is the button, click, and we're good to go. Let's create a function to clear the OTP. So let's come down here and let's just say private void clear OTP text boxes. This is going to clear all the OTP text boxes so that it can return to an empty. Now we have to automatically advance the focus key when we enter any of the keys. Example, when we enter something here, it should automatically jump to the another one, jump to the another one, so on and so forth. So the next thing we're probably going to do is create a private void, and this void is going to be called OTP text box key app, right? OTP text box key app, and this is going to be like this. Perfect. And in here we're just going to say, okay, right, so the text box we have created, let's create a text box, assign it to a current text box, and we assign it to the text box which we need. But this is how we're going to make it. We're just going to assign the current text box to the sender as text box, right? Just like this. Now the next thing we're probably going to do is we're just going to check if the current text box is equal to null, then what we will do is we will just return nothing, right? If the current text box is nothing, is null, that is what we're gonna do. Right, now let's check if the digits are available. So we're just going to say if the current text box dot text dot length is equal to 1, right, is equal to 1, and e dot key, that is going to be the key code. So we're just going to use the key code, then we will assign the key code to the keys dot back, right? Okay, right, so the keys dot back. So the next thing we're probably going to do is that is when we will assign the selected next control. So we're just going to say this dot selected next control, and then that is going to be the current text box true, right? Just like this. Okay, the next thing is going to be else if the current text box dot length is not, we're not going to use the current text box dot length, right? But we're just going to say else if e dot key code is equals keys dot back, right? Just like this, keys dot back, and just like this, the current text box, so the current text box dot text dot length is equals 0, right? Then something is probably gonna happen. So inside here, that is where we will say this dot selected current control is gonna be here, is gonna be false, and then it's gonna be true. Perfect. Now this OTP stuff is good, and we're good to go. Right, so let's do a recap and then let's see what we have actually achieved. So we have the confirm, that is the send button, and then we should have the resend, and then we should be good to go. Yeah, so where to use the OTP is going to be resend. So after this we just call the clear OTP text boxes, and we're just going to clear everything in there. So now it's time for us to test this, but before that you have to prepare your one-time password from your email account. so that you could probably add it inside where you are generating your codes from. Sorry, where you are sending your information. That is here. You have to enter your email. So example at gmail.com, and then your generated one-time password from your Google account. I'm going to pause the video, add mine, and get back to it, and then we will start right away. So I have added my my account information. So I'm just going to click on start. Just going to click on start. And okay, I'm having an error. Let me see the error. Yeah, right. So we should see the new OTP form, which is probably going to say, oh, so it requires an email, and then yeah, it requires an email parameter when we click on the login button. Right, so this is probably going to be, we're going to pass in our email.text, right? So we will pass the email.text to the OTP form. So it's going to be txt email.text. And let's not forget that on the OTP page, we can assign the OTP sent to your email address, like this one, and we can add the email here. But let's just leave it like that. You can probably, you know, work with it, and it's probably going to be good. So here I'm just going to add my email, right? And I'm just going to enter the password. That is going to be password 123, and I'm just going to log in. The parameter address cannot be strange. The parameter address cannot be strange, but still yet we have the OTP, and you see, so the OTP needs to be sent, but it was creating some sort of an error, which I mean we had to see. So we probably have to extend this a little bit. So you see the resend OTP, we click on it, we have this error. So we have to fix this error. So real quick, let's just fix this first. This not showing well. Let's just fix that. So let's close it, click on this, and then let's just expand this a little bit for it to be like this. Sorry, so let's just expand it a little bit for it to be like this, right? So that it will have an equal dimension, or let's just say the equal size of it. Yeah, and yeah, it's gonna be nice. So the main problem we are facing is, remember, we need to assign some things to the other sections as well when we were actually working on the SMTP configuration. When preparing the email, you saw that we have a credentials which we need to add here, which you have to get from your SMTP. But when you come down here, you see message from. So who is this message actually from? So it can be your company's email, or it can be anything. So I'll just say it is coming from ikehacks0@gmail.com. That needs to be set, and the recipient is probably going to be from the recipient. When we are using the send OTP, we use the user email and then the generated OTP, right? So with no further ado, let's just test this once again. So I click on the start button, and there you go. So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to type my email. And then what I'll do is I'll just type in my password. Right? Then I just click on the login, right? So you see, it is sending the OTP. Let's just wait for, you see, OTP has been sent to your email. So now we're waiting for the OTP, and I've got it. So let's go inside my Gmail and then see what the OTP looks like. So I have my Gmail account here, and let's see how the OTP code looks like. So you see, I have a new OTP code right here. You see, this is the new OTP code. Just as you can see here, I have the OTP code right in here. So that is 785 817 785 817. So I'm just going to say 785 oh sorry, 785817. Right. So 785817. That is the code. So we click on confirm, and there you go. OTP confirmation successfully. And we have our dashboard. All right, so this is how you could probably manage to get your own OTP verification code. And thank you very much. On our next video, we're just going to see how we can customize this OTP page with an HTML template, so that the email we will be getting is going to be unique and special rather than this. All right, thank you very much, and let's meet on our next video. Until then, have a nice day. And Microsoft Original is out.